Lions are cool, but I wouldn't want to be stuck in a room full of them. In our story today, we will be learning how Daniel was thrown into a den full of ferocious lions. What do you think happens next? Well, we can tell you right after we worship.
Water you turned into wine. Open the eyes of the blind. There's no one like you. None like you. Into the darkness you shine. Out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you. None like you. Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. Into the darkness you shine. Out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you. None like you. Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, yeah. And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? What could stand against? Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? What could stand against?
We hear sounds all the time, like a door creaking or even a mouse squeaking. These sounds are a normal part of our life. And today we are playing What's That Sound? A game that relies on your ability to tell different sounds apart. So we will play you a sound and you will have to tell us what that sound is. And you will get 10 seconds for each one. Are you ready to try it out? Thanks for playing, everyone. We will see you next week when we have another fun game in store for you.
Imagine being a hungry lion, or like Johnny on a Tuesday night. And that some guards tossed a tasty meal into your den. Now again, imagine no matter how hungry you were and no matter how hard you tried, you just couldn't eat your meal. That is exactly what happened in our Bible story today. Daniel was thrown into a lion's den, but God kept him safe. He had already gone through so much in his life, but through it all, Daniel remained faithful to God. Well, in our story today, Daniel was told not to pray to God, but to the king instead. How do you think that went? Spoiler alert, Daniel remained faithful to God. That's why our big idea today is, we trust God to help us obey Him. Let's watch our story to see how Daniel was faithful to God even through hardship.
King Darius was the new leader in Babylon. Babylon was a large kingdom, so Darius picked men to be leaders over small parts of Babylon. King Darius picked Daniel to be one of the leaders. Daniel was very good at his job, so Darius decided to put Daniel in charge of all of Babylon. When the other leaders heard about this, they were jealous. They watched Daniel and waited for him to do something wrong so they could get him in trouble. But Daniel did what was right. The leaders knew Daniel obeyed God, so they made a plan to get Daniel in trouble for praying. They went to King Darius and said, "King, all of your leaders think it would be a good idea to pass a new law. For the next 30 days, no one may pray to any god or man except to you. Anyone who disobeys the law will be thrown into the lion's den." King Darius agreed to pass the new law. Daniel knew the law meant he was not allowed to pray to God. Still, Daniel went into his house and prayed to God 3 times a day, just like he had always done. The jealous leaders saw Daniel praying, and they told the king that they had seen Daniel praying to God. King Darius was upset. He knew that Daniel deserved to be punished for breaking the law, but he didn't want to punish Daniel. The king thought all day about how he could save Daniel from the lions. The law can't be changed, the men reminded King Darius. So King Darius ordered Daniel to be thrown into the lion's den. May the God you serve save you, he said. The king went to his palace for the night. He did not eat and he could not sleep. He thought about Daniel with the lions. As soon as the sun came up the next morning, the king hurried to the lion's den. He cried out, "Daniel, has your God rescued you from the lions?" Daniel shouted back, "God sent his angels to shut the lion's mouth. I am safe." The king was so happy. He ordered for Daniel to be taken out of the lion's den. Daniel wasn't hurt because he had trusted in God. King Darius made a new law. He wrote that everyone must respect God. King Darius wrote, "He is the living God. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions." God showed his power to rescue Daniel from the lions. But Daniel was just a small part of a much bigger story. God ultimately rescued us from a much bigger problem, sin and death, through his son, Jesus.
We often see lions and just think, oh, they're so cute. I mean, look at this adorable stuffed animal. They may look cute, but these guys are ferocious beasts. I mean, they're the top of the food chain. Now, everyone had a lot of pressure to follow this new decree given by the king. But God calls us to obey him, and that often means doing things differently. And that's exactly what Daniel did in today's story. Let's take a look in our Bibles, starting at Daniel chapter 6, verse 10. But when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt down as usual in his upstairs room, with its windows open toward Jerusalem. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to his God. Daniel 6:10. Think about all the pressure that Daniel was under, yet he still obeyed God over the king. First, the officials created a plan to make it so that no one could pray to anyone besides the king. Anyone who prayed to the king would be thrown into a lion's den. And not just any lion's den, but a hungry lion's den. To make matters worse, they caught Daniel praying, and he was thrown in to become the lion's next feast. Through it all, he stood strong because God gives us the strength to obey him. He stood tall, and even in the lion's den, he prayed. God answered his prayer by shutting the mouths of the lions. Obedience, even in a small task, can be really tough. One of the ways God gives us strength to obey him is through the church. Daniel didn't have a community around him while he was in the lion's den, but God provides us with other people who also love him. They can help us obey when we feel like we cannot. When we trust in Jesus, we are part of God's family. People in God's family love God and love each other. They show that love by obeying God and helping each other obey God too. Listen, it's important to have friends who love Jesus. They can help you to persevere in your faith even when things get hard. Go ahead and wrap up your time together in both prayer and scripture. This would be a great time to read part of our story, which is found in Daniel chapter 6, verses 13 through 23. Then spend some time in prayer. Do you have a community around you that helps you obey God? Spend some time asking that God would strengthen you and your family through a community of like-minded believers who will help you grow in your faith and your obedience. Thanks for watching, everyone. Come back next week to hear the story of Esther.